It's Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers with tips and advice on landscaping and gardening. Here's Fernando Martinez.
Yes, it's true. I am here, and this is the place to be. Today's show, the topic of the day is hardscaping versus landscaping. What is the difference? Hardscaping, landscaping, softscaping. They like to give it these names that, and even me being in the industry, it makes, I don't know, it's all landscaping. And so I want to talk about that and terminology a little bit. What are the benefits of this so-called hardscaping, and what materials do you use, and why would you use certain materials versus others, given any certain situation? And finally, we'll talk about maintenance. We're going to talk a little bit about sealers today and cleaning products for hardscape walls, patios, pavers, anything that's not green and living and growing in your landscaping. And so that is the topics for today, and I really wanted to address that. So let's start with this hardscaping versus softscaping, landscaping. I wanted to see how many words we can put in front of the word scape. Is that even a word? Partial word. Anyway, maybe 2 letters ES, we can escape. So to me, your landscape should be a refuge, someplace to relax, hang out, whatever makes that happen. To me, it's usability. When I think of hardscaping, I think of pavers as the first thing, or concrete areas, any flat work, trash can, driveways, areas that you would walk, access around the house, back patios. And then, of course, if there's any slopes on your yard, elevation changes and things where you need to put in retaining walls to hold the soil back, that's considered hardscaping. Fire pits can be considered hardscaping. Outdoor kitchens can be considered hardscaping. Even lighting, I would imagine. I mean, if they're made out of copper and brass, is it copperscaping? I don't know. But anyway, softscaping would be obviously the plant material and the sod and, things of that nature. But when we're talking about these areas that are usable space. Now, lawns can be very usable. They've kind of grown a little bit out of fashion, and with the water situation, and if you don't use them in the ways that we used to, and we've had other shows that we talk a lot about on uses for lawns and things like that. But today's show, I really wanted to focus on usability, where you could put a table and chairs. You don't have to worry about the sprinklers coming on and getting everything all wet. You could park your car. You could have a beautiful entry or something a little wider. I love big, wide entries, or if they're smaller, making them feel big. And one way to do that is to not have too much plant material around an entry. It shouldn't feel bushy and overgrown and, kind of walking through the shrubberies to get into near the home, in my opinion. And so I think that nice open spaces, hardscaping makes sense, so there's really a lot of benefits to hardscaping. Number one, easiest recognized, is the low maintenance aspect of hardscaping. There's really very little to do once, this hard products are in. There's not a whole lot to do. There is some maintenance, but it's very mild, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. But how to really maintain them. And really it's more for just looks and having it be the best that it can be and the cleanest it can be and most vibrant in color. But when it comes down to it, that's not even completely necessary. It can just be left alone and be perfectly fine. So I wanted to really think about what types of materials, when it comes time to make decisions for the hardscape of the landscaping, do you choose, and why do you choose a given product? So for instance, take flat work, and we're saying, okay, I need my driveway is all cracked up and dangerous and doesn't look good. it's this white blah color, and it's just not really doing anything for the house, and I want to get, something redone. So what are your options? I mean, when I was little, growing up, we had a blacktop driveway, and that's still an option. Probably one of the least expensive things you could do. Nobody really does it anymore. I mean, unless you're doing a parking lot or something, it just looks like the road. But I'll tell you one good thing about it, if you have a large property and you can't really do, the really nice materials the whole way, it makes sense on side of homes or RV parking areas, things like that. The one good thing that I actually like about blacktop is it's repairable and it's flexible, and you can put just a slurry sealer over the top to maintain it every so many years, and it's not bad. Obviously it looks like the road, so it's nothing special, and it's not something you would want really near your home or having it for a driveway or an entry, of course. So the next thing you would think of would be concrete. I mean, almost like for years, if you needed a driveway or an entry, the back patio, concrete was it. I mean, it was very, didn't make any sense to really do any other product. Some people did brick, which I didn't really think was that good of an idea. You got the look of the brick, it's kind of dated, and they're not really meant to be laid down. Brick are for fireplaces and buildings and structures and things, so they're really meant to be vertical, not necessarily flat and low. When you put them on the ground, they don't interlock with each other. There's no spacers in between them, and they have a tendency to move and settle and chip, and you certainly can't do a driveway out of them. You have to pour them in concrete anyway, and they're just kind of back to concrete. So another option, and I really think it's the best option now in this hardscape world that we have, is pavers. So for driveways, entries, back patios, they are the strongest of the materials, the most durable, the colors, patterns, shapes. There's so many different things you can do with pavers now, different color borders. You can put false mats inside by a front door, change the paver there. The creativity and the look it's endless, and it's actually a really exciting time to be involved in this industry, and it's just so much better. Now, they are made out of concrete too, so it's not like concrete's evil to hardscape world, but concrete has its limitations. It cracks very quickly, the color fades, and so there's a lot of downsides to that. Now, you can get colored concrete, stamped concrete, and things start to look a lot better and nicer, but the problem is it's still the same product. It's still going to crack just as much as any concrete, and the fading issue, because you're only going to get a base color in the concrete, and the concrete that you pour out when you're with a delivered truck has a lot of water in it, and it has to. So it's pliable, and you're able to get it and pour it in place. The pavers have very little water in them, and which is why they're so strong. And so really, when it comes to flat work, anything level on the ground, driveways, entries, back patios, I think if you can swing the upfront cost, pavers in the long run are going to be your best value, because there's not going to be anything to do. There's not going to be any cracking or fading, and be really happy with that product for a really long time. And the other fact is, similar to the blacktop, is it's repairable. So if something were to happen, your neighbor plants a aggressive tree, or roots come over, it gets lifted up, you can lift the pavers up, cut the root out, put the pavers back. Somebody, maybe you order some service, something goes wrong in your home, they come to fix it, the leaky oil truck pulls up on the driveway, leaks oil in your driveway. Concrete driveway, completely ruined. Paver driveway, you take a few pavers out and you replace those pavers with the oil stains. And it's just, there's so many options that it's hard to go wrong, because it's the last really driveway you'll ever need, or back patio. And with the fact that it's repairable, there's just really not much that can go wrong. So I just hate to see people invest a lot of money in something that's chance that they'll not be happy with it or have to replace it at some point. And so that's why I get my opinion on the flat work. Now, when it comes to retaining walls, it's kind of similar. If you do poured in place walls, block walls, stucco, all those things are trying to be really stiff and hard. The good thing about, hardscaping these days is they have a lot of engineered materials that are designed to be flexible and interlock with each other and move with the earth and not crack and let water drain through and which is really important. And with things that are trying to be stiff and solid and not move, they're high likely to crack. So, for the look of things, stucco, you can match the house if you're doing a retaining wall, and you can put a nice cap on there. There's a place for it for sure. In the old style, we would do wood or railroad ties. Now, when we talk about different materials for retaining walls, railroad ties are pretty cheap, and they come in 8-9 foot lengths. So you plop one down, there it is, 9 feet of wall right there. So the labor of it's pretty simple. Drill a hole through it, stick a piece of rebar through, and you got a retaining wall. Or I've built them where we take one of the railroad ties and cut it maybe into 4 feet, bury it 2 feet in the ground, and leave it 2 feet sticking up, and you put the railroad ties behind there. But it gives you this kind of old style look, kind of matches with, I guess, if you have brick and, railroad tie retaining walls, you planting junipers and, things of the way things kind of used to be when landscaping. That, you got to remember, these hardscaping materials haven't always been around. There's been a progression to where we are today with what's available, and you couldn't just go down and buy those, stackable retaining wall blocks. And, if you wanted to go a step up from the railroad ties, you did the cinder block. That didn't look that good. But even then, again, the cracking and the look. So with the retaining wall blocks, I really think those, what they call stackable, mortarless retaining wall blocks are the best option, in my opinion. Get the ones that have open cells where you can fill them with rock. They have a 1-inch setback on the lip of the stone, so every course they are going 1 inch back as you go up, so it gives them even more strength. Again, they're made out of concrete, but they're made out of really high, strong tensile strength concrete, so that they're strong. The blocks themselves, you fill them with rock. They interlock with each other. They're flexible. They're not trying to be mortared together and stiff. And so you get a lot less failure, and you have a really good experience with your wall. And they're a lot easier to install. So if you're taking on a project like that yourself, make sure you get it nice and level and compacted underneath, and you should be able to do a retaining wall yourself, or, relatively reasonable. And so that's a biggie too. Now, what else could be hardscaping out there would be like a fire pit. If you want to, they have kits now with blocks that you can make a fire pit out of, whether it's going to be wood or if it's going to be a gas fire pit. If you might just have a plumber come and run the gas line for you, or even landscapers like myself, we can go out and do a gas line and build the fire pit for you. Outdoor kitchens, tons of ideas. I mean, oh my gosh, it's with the internet, it's just amazing. You just type in outdoor kitchen and you have everything from full blown, modern kitchens outside to simple barbecue spots, and, or you could have fireplaces outside. I mean, it seems like the sky's the limit when it comes to this whole hardscape thing, but it's all part of your landscaping. It's all part of your enjoyment, part of your relaxation, your atmosphere in the back. So think about how you want to use it, how you want to incorporate hardscaping into your whole scheme of your whole landscape, and outdoor atmosphere. So if you see yourself eating outside, make sure the patio is big enough to have tables and chairs, or at least a bistro set. Do you want to, lay out there? Make sure the space is long enough for a lounge chair. And if you're cold at night and you don't use your yard at night, plan for a fire pit or fireplace. something that would make you want to actually go out there and use it at night. Landscape lighting in the evening is absolutely amazing, and it gives you a whole different feel. You can see there's nobody there hiding in the bushes, but done tastefully, and nothing superly overly bright and spotlights, to drive people away, because it blinds you as much as it would blind anybody. But with tasteful landscape lighting, a nice little fire pit, it doesn't have to be anything extravagant. Even if it can be something simple as just a fire ring that you get at the grocery store or a box store, and throw a couple logs on. But in the evening, coming home from work, having a reason to go out and use the yard, having enough hardscape space to enjoy it, and have comfortable chairs there to sit out and relax and be warm and have lights coming on. That's, to me, oh my gosh, it totally improves the quality of life for whoever's living in that home, you and your whole family. And so really consider that when you're thinking about designing landscaping, incorporating hardscaping into the design. And I gotta say, as much as we do it, and the low maintenance aspect of it, and you can talk for weeks just on all the different materials and options and choices and colors and textures. And so, but the main thing to remember is you don't want to do too much either. It can go both ways, because it's low maintenance, I don't have to do anything, cover the whole yard with hardscape. No, it doesn't look good. And you can start, it's pretty hard, but it's rare that you're thinking to yourself, my patio's too big, And I've only seen it where it's with really small yards, you can start getting too much, of the hardscaping and not enough plant material. So if it's something that's already done and existing and you want to soften it, pots are a good way to do that, and color in the pots, or the pots themselves have a color and maybe something cascading over, or bring plant material out onto the pavers. You don't have to trim everything right smack up to the edge of the paver. I love when plants kind of encroach onto the pavers, and you get a little bit of, leaves and blooms that are blowing around on there. It looks more natural. It feels better. And so softening the hardscape is really key to design, and not going overboard too much. But I think people are more likely to err on the side of not enough hardscaping. And it's just from either what you see in your mind or what you've dealt with before, or maybe you're taking out existing concrete and you're replacing it just the same size that it was. In most cases, I'm recommending, suggesting that we go a little bit bigger than what you had before, 10, 12, 15 feet, 20 feet out from the house. Give yourself some room, for if you did want to have a fire pit or tables and chairs, and things change over time, and you start filling, the space up. It's like even when the home you buy the house and you're walking through there and you're thinking, oh my gosh, look at all this space. This house is huge. And then you start moving all your furniture in, and the TV and the drawers and everything. And it's just all of a sudden it doesn't feel as big anymore with all the furniture and things that we have. And the same thing is with the back patio and entryways. Go a little bit bigger than you think, mostly. And if you have a really small yard, be careful you don't want to do the whole yard, and leave room at least 3-4 feet for the planters. And if you have a big space, leave big planters. If you plan on having no lawn, make sure you've got 6, 7, 8 feet for the planters and plenty of room. And then you can put in some nice, decent sized plant material, where not everything, if all your planter beds are 3 feet, you're not going to be able to have a very decent size of a plant, and you're going to be cutting it back all the time. So obviously low maintenance is the key, and you do that with plant material by getting the right plants for the right size of planters. So you want to make sure you plan that when you're doing your hardscape. Now, if you do want lawn, plan that as well, and think about the length, distance of the nozzles, 12 feet, 15 feet, 8 foot, and plan so that they're not overspraying onto the hardscape. So That's important to think about. The mow strip that goes around the edge of the grass, also considered hardscaping. Plan all that out and make sure that you've got the right size nozzles, plant materials, everything before you put your hardscaping in. A good plan ahead of time will pay off.
You're listening to Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers on California's Central Coast. Here on 1240 AM and 99.5 FM, KSMA.
This show is brought to you by Airval Block. Concrete paving stones or pavers are not all created equal. Airval Block pavers are created from a dry mix of gravel, sand, cement, and color. With very little water used, they're super strong. They won't crack or fade. And to be an Airval Block paver, the gravel and sand come from right here on the Central Coast, supporting our local community. Airval Block is the only local manufacturer of concrete masonry products like pavers, mortarless retaining wall blocks. Airval Block products are high quality for peace of mind, and there are many colors to choose from. And if you're not sure which products you need or how to use them, you will always get expert advice from the staff at Airval Block. Products made on the Central Coast for the Central Coast. Visit their fully landscaped outdoor showroom to see the many ways you can use Airval Block products at number 1 Suburban Road in San Luis Obispo, or go online at airvalblock.com.
If you're thinking about installing a new paver patio or paver driveway, check out Chaparral Pavers online at ilovetocomehome.com. Serving the Central Coast since 2001, Chaparral Pavers will work with you to get it right and complete the job to your specifications, as customer service is king at Chaparral Pavers. Paver driveways are stylish and durable and guaranteed to never crack. If your old concrete driveway or entryway is a hazardous cracking mess, it's time to call Chaparral Pavers. Go to their website, ilovetocomehome.com. You'll find all the information you need. Check out photographs of past installations and reviews from Central Coast residents who have used Chaparral Pavers. And don't forget, all installations are guaranteed for the life of your home. So check out Chaparral Pavers online at ilovetocomehome.com. Chaparral Pavers, they'll make you love to come home. Now, back to Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers on KSMA.
Okay, we are back. And yes, so we've been talking about hardscaping and landscaping and a little bit of softscaping, all that fun stuff, all under the umbrella of your yard space and making it beautiful and wonderful and usable and getting you out there and really making that a big part of the square footage of your home. The nicer your yard is, the more you want to use it. They sell houses, like how many square feet is that house, But if the outside space, which is not included in that, they might give you the size of the lot, but the more usable that space is, just makes the whole home feel that much bigger. And, when it's small or entries feel crowded and it's just maybe the whole thing is just shrubs and bushes or lawn that you're not using, that can actually really detract from your experience and your life, your livelihood, the quality of life. Coming home should feel wonderful. It should put a smile on your face. You should, walk around and just, maybe deadheading some blooms or fertilizing and pulling a couple weeds. And really that to me is a really good home feeling for you, your family, and everybody. If you're entertaining people coming over, if you've got plenty of room outside, people can hang out inside, outside, barbecuing, sitting by the fire pit. And so really that's the focus of this show, and talking about which materials and why. I am a big proponent of flexible, fixable, repairable materials that are strong, hold their color, they don't crack, and you can add on later. That's something we didn't talk about. If you have a paver patio or driveway and it's just maybe you didn't make the back patio big enough and you want to add on, or you couldn't do it all at once and you wanted to break it into 2 phases, you can do that with pavers and you cannot tell. So when it comes to hardscaping, those are my favorite types of products. Other ones that are products that are limiting, for instance, concrete, you pour one pour and then you pour another pour, you can always tell the two different colors, even if they both have no color in them, that for some reason that, second batch of concrete is the base color is always just slightly different, and it never ages really and catches up. It seems that when I've seen it, and my experience has been that they just keep aging both at the same time, and that one always stays a little bit whiter, or the other one looks just a little bit darker, or the finish of where they did the broom was a little different. And so, I love products that I can add on to my retaining wall and it's seamless. I can't tell. Or I can add on to a driveway extension. We weren't planning on having a third vehicle. Now we do. We need a place to park, or every time I get out of my car, I hit the bush with the door, and I wish that had been part of the driveway. You can add those areas in. That's one reason I like to put borders around the pavers also when we do it, so that if we go to add on, it's that border just becomes like a little seam down the middle of that area, and it looks like, oh wow, look, they put a border in the middle of the pavers and they continued it on, and it almost becomes like a design element in there. So not only is it seamless, it can really look even better, and sometimes you can plan that from the beginning. We did a big 3-car garage driveway with a driveway extension and another extension on the other side to make a walkway up to the entry. It was really wide, a lot of pavers across the front of the house, but we broke it up with lines. We took where the garage was and the natural break off of the home, and did an outline of a different color paver, all in a straight line, one row of the same size paver to make a border. And then we had another area off to the left, and the walkway up to the right. We did a nice curve and kind of snaked it up towards the entry of the home, and that had its separate outline. Even though in reality, the whole thing from the edge of the walk all the way to the driveway extension on the other side was all flat and all pavers. It made a difference just having those borders in there. It would be pretty difficult to do. Doing that with concrete, you would have to pour those bands first. I've seen it done, and it could certainly be done. And that could be a different color, it can be a different stamp, and then they'll pour, the insides of these, squares with, the concrete or rectangles or whatever they are. So it's all possible, it's all doable, and we're just thinking about it, talking about it today. I, of course, have my opinions on it. And so the last part of the subject that I wanted to address today was, even though about the lowest maintenance you can get is, generally speaking, hardscaping. So not a whole lot to do with these things once they're installed. And if you pick really good materials and you have the, job done right the first time on the install, there's very little to do, and you end up being really happy with this, for a really long time. Now, let's say a year goes by, 2 years, 3 years go by with dirt and dust and rains and, shady areas staying moist with the molds and mosses, and things start to look dingy and not as clean and fresh as they did when you first installed the job and you were so happy. So I think when it comes to cleaning products, sealers for hardscaping, there's kind of couple schools of thought behind it. That's once you start going kind of down that road of cleaning and sealing and taking care of the hardscape, you're having maintenance now. But is that maintenance, is the payoff that they always look nice and vibrant? And in fact, in some of the sealers have a color enhancer in them to make even on when you first install it, it has a more vibrant look to it. So you're doing maintenance now and you're creating a little bit of work for yourself because you have to maintain those and keep them up. But at the same time, the payoff is that you have a product that looks really nice, has a little bit of a sheen to it, and it stays clean and looks really good for a really long time. Try to stay away from the high gloss oil-based sealers. Stay with the low sheen water-based sealers. You'll have much better luck, and the products will look really good for a long time.
This has been Patio Side Chats with Fernando Martinez from Chaparral Pavers. Go to ilovetoComeHome.com to find out more, or call 805-588-6600. 6917. And be sure and tune in next week at this same time for Patio Side Chat here on KSMA.